Welcome back to another episode of the Bros Bros. You knows. We are your BFF of the internet, and we're going to continue to campaign for BEER, Beerocracy. The BBWK, the Bros Beer we know of the week, is the Flying Dog Fever Dream. This is a mango habanero IPA, and it is delicious. Now, unlike the last beer we recommended to you guys, the Ruby Redbird, this is a little bit thicker, so it's not something that you're going to be drinking vigorously. It's going to be something that you're going to want to sip. It's perfect for a barbecue or to pair with a burger. It's got that slight mango sweetness, then just a kick of heat for those of you bros that like a little spice in your life. Flying Dog Fever Dream, and remember guys, enjoy responsibly. This is an absolutely exciting, historic week of fights. We got so many great things to talk about on today's show. First up, we're going to be talking about Fight Night 90's main event between Rafael Dos Anjos versus Eddie Alvarez. Next, we're going to talk about that TUF 23 finale, the main event of Joanna Jedrzejczyk versus Claudia Gadelha. And then finally, we're going to do a quick pick'em discussion for the UFC 200 undercard. I also want to make a quick note. This will be a first time in BBYK history. We're going to be doing a two-parter. 2 episodes for the price of one, guys. So this first one, everything that I said, we're going to be discussing there. And then we're going to be breaking down the main card of the epic UFC 200 in part 2. And then we're also going to have UFC fighter Ben Nguyen stop by to chat with us. So tune in for that one as well. So many great things to talk about that I had to bring on 2 fight experts. I got with me David BC Bridges. What's up, Dave?
What's up, guys?
And then we have the always funny Matt Two Stripe Alexander. What's up, Matt?
Doing great, man. Just got back from jiu-jitsu. Fool was trying to put me in a scarecrow guard, but I had my Batman rash guard on, and I was like, what?
Guys, how psyched are you for this week? I mean, how crazy is this?
Actually, it's kind of cool not having anything last weekend as far as the UFC was concerned, because it really lets you kind of build up to back-to-back-to-back nights of some awesome fights. And honestly, Saturday night is just going to be insane. That entire card, the entire undercard, the entire main card is just incredibly stacked. It's nuts.
Yeah, I love like every fight on this. It's gonna be awesome. If you don't have Fight Pass, gotta get it, because Joe Lauzon's fight with Diego Sanchez is just gonna be on Fight Pass, so can't miss that. It's gonna be a glorious bloodbath.
Also, the entire Fight Night 90, the Rafael Dos Anjos Eddie Alvarez title fight, the first title fight to ever be on Fight Pass. If you were on the fence about getting Fight Pass, you might want to spend the, $10, $15 if you want to watch that fight live. But guys, let's get right to it. Fight Night 90, Rafael Dos Anjos, the current lightweight champion, versus Eddie Alvarez. Let's start with the champ, RDA. He's got a record of 25-7. This guy fights out of King's MMA and Evolve MMA. He is a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and under Rafael Cordeiro, his striking has steadily improved to the point where this guy is a flat-out dangerous Muay Thai fighter. David, tell us a little bit about RDA.
Well, it's kind of funny because I feel like in the past I've never given RDA the credit he actually deserves. I feel like most fights, and especially the past few title fights, his title defenses, I've just never really given the credit that he obviously deserves. I mean, the guy's completely well-rounded. On his feet, I mean, he really focuses on backing his opponents up towards the fence. He does a good job using his footwork to force his opponents backward, and then he uses his strikes to keep his opponent from, all their circle out attempts. And once he gets his opponent against the cage, it really opens up not only his clinch striking, but also his wrestling. I mean, he does a good job of pushing his opponent back against the cage He does a really good job of that. He's a strong dude, and he has quite the gas tank, so he can keep that pace going for a while, which is quite impressive for someone who I think he's built pretty thick for a lightweight. He's got a pretty stocky build.
Short though, compact build.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. He's not he's not huge, but he's very short, compact. Exactly. Yeah. On the ground, he has a pretty heavy top game and does a really good job passing and controlling his opponent. And he has not really shown off much submission offense that I've seen throughout his career. But he really does make his opponents pay down there on the ground through his ground and pound. I mean, overall, he's just well-rounded. Keeps you going. He's got quite the gas tank.
David, I got a question for you. A lot of people credit King's MMA, Rafael Cordero, for really taking RDA's game to that next level. For his fight against Eddie Alvarez, he actually went over to Singapore to train with the guys at Evolve MMA. Do you think this is going to change anything? Why do you think he did that?
Honestly, I'm not really sure what the reasoning is behind that. I mean, it's clear Kings has been working for him. I mean, he's been a beast since he's been training out there in California. So I'm not really sure what the camp, I guess not really camp change, but the change of venue at least. I'm not really sure what the reasoning is behind that, but it will be interesting to see if it just adds a new facet to his game, or if it changes his whole style completely and maybe messes with his head. I don't know. We'll have to see. It'll be interesting.
I brought this up at the end of our last podcast, the fact that injuries are part of the game, and that's always going to be part of the MMA game, but that we've had injuries specifically for pretty big fights, title fights. Right. Obviously, the RDA Conor McGregor fight was supposed to be an epic lightweight champion versus featherweight champion for the lightweight belt, and he hurt himself. I wonder if maybe, he injured himself with the King's MMA, the rigors that they put into all-out sparring. Maybe he thought a change of pace preserve his body a little bit more. I don't know if that played a factor. I really don't know at all. I know he's really close to the guys over at Evolve. He credits them for really turning him from a grappler into not just a decent striker, but one of the better strikers in his division. He gifted the guys over there one of his UFC championship belts. So he obviously has a really close relationship with them. Wonder if the guys at Kings feel a little slighted because they're like, wait, we were the ones that trained you when you became champion. Where's our belt? Maybe they get the one if he wins against Eddie Alvarez. But
there we go.
That's no easy task. His opponent, Eddie Alvarez, quite the beast. He has a record of 27-4. He trains up there with Mark Henry and co. You guys will know him. He trains Frankie Edgar, who will be in, I wanted to say co-main event. It's not even the third fight on the card. It's the fourth fight. But that title fight between Frankie Edgar and Jose, that UFC 200 card, so stacked.
That's nuts.
But yeah, he's been up there working on his craft with Frankie Edgar. This guy is the former Bellator champion, mixes in some great boxing and some great grappling. Matt, why don't you tell us a little bit about Eddie Alvarez?
He can wrestle. He's good at it. He's also a brown belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, so it's not like he's a slouch on the ground. One of the things that RDA mentioned, I don't know if this was just to get in his head to try to keep it on the feet, but RDA was talking about how he's been working on his Jiu-Jitsu and he wants to get it on the ground to submit him. But I don't see that happening. Even though RDA has a good background, he hasn't been using it, and I always think it's much smarter for guys to stick with what got you there. As I said, his jiu-jitsu is not bad. It's like the difference between a black belt and a brown belt of their caliber is like much closer than, say, like a blue belt and a white belt. So the likelihood of him getting submitted is much less, and for RDA, I think that's a losing proposition trying to go in there because he can lose by decision because Eddie Alvarez has very good top control and is a very good wrestler. So he could just take him down and get some ground and pound going, maybe lay and pray and win that way. But I think it'll stay on the feet and it should be like pretty even, like at least for the first round or two.
You know, Matt, you and I have actually talked about this fight before off the air, and a couple things that we've mentioned before when you have two guys, one guy slightly better than the other guy at Brazilian Jiu Jitsu, and how it's much harder to submit someone than it is to defend against a submission. You don't have to be on the same level as someone to be able to stop them from submitting you. If we look at Dos Anjos' record, even though he has a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and is a very competent grappler himself, he struggled a bit against other good grapplers. Look, there's not a lot of Khabibs in the UFC. I mean, that guy is one of the best wrestlers in the UFC right now.
He's on a whole different level.
So, and I'm not saying Alvarez is on Khabib's level, but I am saying Alvarez is a very good grappler in his own right. And if you look at Dos Anjos, the guys he fought haven't really tried to take him down. The guys that have tried to take him down have been able to take him down. And need I remind everyone, Anthony Pettis, of all people, was able to take RDA down. So that's definitely something that Eddie Alvarez can do. Dave, who do you think is going to win this fight?
I believe that the champ holds on to his belt.
Matt, I'm going to ask you the same question. Who do you see winning this fight?
I see RDA winning possibly by TKO if he plays it smart.
Okay, so you guys are both going RDA. We're going to be doing something new. We're not going to be doing anything new. We're just calling it something new. We figured path to victory was too boring for a brodacious show such as ours. So we're coming up with new things. The acronym is BRO. It is the blueprint to rule the octagon. The BRO. So David, you think RDA is going to win? What is his BRO?
All right. RDA's BRO is basically to follow his usual game plan. He needs to pressure Alvarez, and honestly avoid getting to a brawl with Eddie. I mean, Eddie has some power there, so he needs to avoid, staying there in the pocket and just throwing leather with Alvarez. But just pressure him, get Alvarez against the cage, and work his his dirty boxing, work his clinch striking, and keep Alvarez pressured up against the cage so Alvarez can't load up on his power and actually throw. Taking Alvarez to the ground, like y'all said, might not be the easiest thing, but if he just keeps the pressure on, he should be able to take this.
All right, Matt. So the same question to you. What, in your opinion, is RDA's BRO?
RDA's BRO is to keep the pressure like he always does. And if he's so confident in his jiu-jitsu like he thinks, I think he throws a lot of leg kicks and midsection kicks, which are very deadly, and also it helps him to keep guys in front of him and very linear, and keep from taking big strikes from longer range by Alvarez, and I think he can win by TKO if he keeps that pressure up.
RDA is the heavy favorite going into this fight. There's good reason for him being the heavy favorite. David, you've touched on a lot of this already. The guy has a compact and powerful build. His game is built around pressure, and he employs some of the most devastating leg kicks in all of the UFC. Really turns on it, digs his shin, and he also likes to throw those liver kicks too. Incorporates both leg kicks, liver kicks, and then knees to the body. We saw what that did to Cowboy Cerrone. His kicks are really good. His punches are now just as good. He's got that deadly 2-3 combination, and he mixes in headshots and body shots really well. Always keeps his opponents guessing and never really giving them any space to react, fire off something on their own. He's very disciplined. He keeps that pace high, and he keeps that pressure on. And he really makes the opponents have to play a more reactive game. He can generate a lot of power in short spaces, and he's got knockout power. We've seen him develop with the guys at King's MMA an improved wrestling game. His takedowns are pretty decent now. His top game is very strong. He's got excellent smash and pass game. You look at the other guy he's fighting against, Eddie Alvarez, he's just a tough guy. You look at his last 10 fights, this guy has been knocked down 7 times, but yet people can't seem to finish him. He had a tough go his first fight in the UFC against a game opponent, Mr. I know a guy, Cowboy Cerrone. I think it's easy to do MMA math and say, wait, he lost to Cowboy, and RDA ran through Cowboy. RDA should run through Eddie Alvarez. I don't think that's necessarily the case. Eddie Alvarez is a really, really tough cookie. He employs that crouch stance. I really like this. It can be kind of dangerous because the way he uses it, he sets down on that lead leg. I think that's an issue because RDA can really chew that up with those leg kicks if Eddie Alvarez doesn't check them, and Eddie Alvarez isn't exactly the kind of guy that checks leg kicks very well. For the most part, he uses his footwork to kind of stay out of danger, kind of keeps his hands low, and when he does fire off, he's firing off power shots. RDA, he really makes a living off of outmoving his opponent, just kind of keeping that pace up. Eddie Alvarez may be one of the few guys in the division that can sort of keep up with him. Another thing about Eddie Alvarez, his gas tank. It's just as endless as RDA's. As much as RDA will want to push the pace, Eddie Alvarez will want to push the pace even faster. A couple things that I see in Eddie Alvarez's game that's a bit of a weakness. He does really like to load up, and he likes to go left and really set himself up with that left hook, right cross. And that has really hurt him with that counter right hook. And RDA has vicious hooks, both left hand and right hand, but this guy's a southpaw fighter, and most of his power is coming from that left side. So in this one fight, Eddie Alvarez is, I wouldn't say a weakness, but one of the tendencies that opponents have been able to exploit. I don't know if RDA is going to be able to exploit it as well, because Eddie Alvarez is going to be naturally moving away from his power shot. If I were a betting man, I'm looking at the betting lines, and it's negative 345 for RDA. I do think RDA should be favored in this fight, but that's, to me, a little bit crazy. I'm not saying this is a pick'em fight. I just think that people are underrating Eddie Alvarez a little bit, and I really think that Mark Henry's hybrid game of that wrestler-boxer is actually the perfect game for RDA. The ability to dart in, dart out, set up takedowns, really turn the tables on RDA. The guy has a great top game, but he's not so great once the other guy's in control on the top. Sometimes he gets flustered. If guys start pressuring RDA, he's not the same fighter. He'll start shelling up, and that's when Eddie Alvarez can really throw some bombs. I'm going to call the upset here and go with Eddie Alvarez. Whew! Just also want to note, but the co-main event of that fight may last about 10 seconds, but it's going to be an awesome 10 seconds. We're not going to really get into it too much, but Roy Nelson, Derek Lewis, I just want to hear a pick 'em, guys. Who do you guys have?
I'm going to go Derek the Black Beast Lewis in this one. First round knockout.
What about you, Matt?
Derek Lewis by wheel kick to the head.
Whoa, all right.
Dude, I've seen him training, and you're like, someone that big should not be able to kick like that.
He is quite
he actually
nimble.
has really good moves.
He is quite nimble. I've seen him. He likes to practice a lot of aerial attacks, so he throws like double flying knees and stuff like that in practice. He's a large man. I would not want to hold pads for him in case he misses.
Yeah.
I like him too. This is a guy from Houston, Matt, so I know you really like him.
Ow. What's up?
Derek Lewis, what's up? We want you on the Bros. You want the Bros, we know.
I'll go spar with him and be like, bro, if I spar with you, you do our show. It'd be tight, right?
You go and try to spar with him. He might just eat you. Don't you? Have you not seen his celebration after he wins fights? Onward to TUF 23. Got Joanna Jedrzejczyk versus Claudia Gadelha. And if it sounds like I keep saying Joanna's name differently each time, it's because I probably am. It's a hard name to pronounce.
It's Joanna Champion for now.
Before we get into that, Dave, I want to ask you, you and I have been watching TUF, not religiously, but we catch it every other season or so.
Right, yeah.
What's your overall feeling about TUF? It seems like the numbers are going down every single year. What are your thoughts?
I think you're right. I mean, the numbers haven't gone down every single year. I'm not sure what this year's numbers are, but it seems like that. Honestly, I feel like TUF overall has gotten fairly stale. Every season seems to be pretty much the same, and especially now that there's so many other paths to the UFC and paths to being a professional mixed martial artist. You're not quite getting the same caliber of talent, I feel like, in TUF as you used to. I mean, like, you don't have guys like Michael Bisping coming out of TUF anymore. I mean, the last season, I don't remember which season it was, maybe 4 years ago. You had, guys like Kevin Gastelum coming out. Some really well-rounded guys, but you're not really having superstars come out of TUF recently. And I think that's kind of hurt. And another thing that I think has hurt, that I believe has hurt TUF, has been, I'm not going to call it oversaturation, but there are a lot more UFC events on TV now. You have the pay-per-views, you have Fox cards, you have Fox Sports cards, you have Fight Pass cards. I mean, you basically have 2 or 3 events every single month. And it's not like you have to, it's not one event a month or one event every 2 months. And TUF was like your kind of little snack in between the pay-per-views. You basically have UFC all the time. And then if you throw in Bellator and like World Series of Fighting, I mean, honestly, every weekend there's probably a fight on. So I think that the desire for TUF just really isn't there like it used to be.
It's a tough format too. It's a tough format, the tournament style.
It really is, yeah.
You're not, sometimes with these young fighters, I'm not saying you want to hand them easy matchups, but there is something about building up your confidence slowly over time. You're talking about a bunch of fights over a short periods against guys that may have a lot more experience than you, may just flat out be better than you, or better at certain parts of the game, and they can exploit that. That could be really damaging for young fighters.
Honestly, I think, one of the main reasons people watch TUF now is just to see the interactions between the coaches.
Yeah.
Like this year, I mean, Joanna and Claudia, the interactions have been pretty fun to watch. I mean, those two do not seem to like each other at all. So that's always enjoyable. But, the fights themselves, the prospects themselves, it's hard to get really, really pumped up for that.
This is a grudge match, guys. There is bad blood here. I am so excited about this fight. I think this is one of the best fights that the UFC can put on. These are two absolutely high-skilled athletes at the top of their game. You got the styles make matchups. You have the bad blood. And you just have a true 1 versus 2. This is absolutely a phenomenal fight.
And it's a rematch. Their last fight was pretty dang close.
Yeah, we're going to get to that in a second. But split decision. A lot of people thought Claudia won that fight. Very crazy stuff. Let's start with the champ, Joanna. Perfect 10-0. She fights the guys over at Berkut. She is a 5-time Muay Thai world champion. She is flat out one of the best female strikers on the planet Earth. She is quick, she is accurate, and she also has a bit of power. And she's looked dominant over this stretch. You look at her last 3 opponents, she outstruck them 399 to 132 with significant strikes. Absolutely crazy. Dave, I know you are a huge fan of Joanna. Why don't you talk about her game a little bit?
All right. Well, I mean, it's like you said, she is one of the most technical strikers in the UFC. I think a lot of that comes from her Muay Thai and kickboxing background. As far as on her feet, I mean, she bases a lot of her offense off of her jab. She uses that to basically establish distance and range before throwing off her combinations. And kind of similar to Conor McGregor, another great striker, she does a really good job of throwing strikes from all different angles and positions. I mean, not quite as crazy as Conor does, but she does a good job of throwing from different angles, and it kind of frustrates and keeps her opponents off balance. Which I think leads to her such huge disparity when it comes to significant strikes. Additionally, her countering game is really, really strong, and she really makes her opponents pay for trying to initiate any offense of their own. Also, because of her Muay Thai background, I mean, she has a legit clinch game. And honestly, her takedown defense has vastly improved, especially since her last fight against Claudia. Claudia took her down, I want to say 7 or 8 times in that fight. And it seems like she's really, really focused on that aspect of her game, and worked on being able to keep the fight standing, which is where she obviously, wants the fight. On the ground, though, we really haven't seen that much from her, so that might be a hole right there that can be capitalized on. But we haven't really seen her, on her back that much, or honestly even on top that much.
Yeah, it seems the key for Joanna is to keep this fight standing.
Mm-hmm.
Her striking is just phenomenal. She has one of the best jabs in the game. And as you mentioned, she has very solid defensive grappling. And she's been able to really stay out of trouble like that. If she's down, she's immediately getting her back to the cage, walking herself back up. She knows how to get her base load, get her legs wide, really stop those takedowns. It's not just defensive. She can hold people and manipulate them. Really great at hand fighting. She's really good at winning those exchanges and getting in these short shots with her elbows they're not knockout shots, but they can accumulate a bit of damage over time, and she does it really quick. Just a very, very phenomenal fighter. Her opponent, another phenomenal fighter, Claudia Gadelha. She has a professional record of 13-1, trained with the Nova Now guys. Jose Aldo, no big deal.
Bunch of scrubs.
Henan Barao, just, nobodies.
Yeah, exactly.
Nobody that's any good.
Clearly no talent in that gym.
If we are to say Joanna's one of the best females on the planet at striking, Claudia may be one of the best females on the planet at grappling. She has a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, as a 3-time Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu world champion. And working down there with the guys at Nova, she's really expanded her game, incorporated some great wrestling. She's added a bunch of new great takedowns to her arsenal. Kind of has that, as we were talking about with RDA, that strong, compact build. I mean, she's going to be slightly smaller than Joanna, but just a ball of muscle, very strong for that weight class.
So if Derek Lewis is the Black Beast, can we call Claudia the Brazilian Beast? Because you're right. I mean, for someone who's 5'3", she's a hoss.
She's a tank. She's a tank. I gave you a crazy statistic in Joanna's favor. With striking, Claudia lands 5.33 takedowns per 15 minutes. That is 3 times better than the UFC average, men and women. I like to compare her a little bit to Tyrone Woodley, where they like to sprint, then grind, then sprint. These people that are a little bit more muscly, hulked out, kind of the way Tyrone Woodley's built, they don't always have the best gas tank. So instead of keeping up a high pace the entire time, what they do is they blitz, kind of rest a bit, then blitz again. I know you're a big fan of Claudia. Why don't you tell us a little bit about her game?
She's a lot like the Nova União guys. They know how to bring it. They don't back down from anyway, and they come forward. She's probably not. She's like a step below Joanna in terms of striking, as most women are, but she's not going to back down, especially from volume of strikes. She's tough as hell, moves forward, and she can take her down. And I think she's learned a lot from that last fight, and she's also in Joanna's head. So, I really like her chances in this fight. I'd give her a slight edge this time. But they're both just crazy tough. Hopefully she can get some takedowns early on and grind it out, because I think this one's going to be like one of those barn burners, because it can go all 5 rounds, and it's just going to be hell for both of them.
But awesome for the fans.
But awesome for the fans. You're like, sorry we took years off your life, but it was worth it for performance of the night.
I'm going to give the edge to the champ in terms of striking, and I think you have to give the edge to the champ. Basically, any woman, regardless of weight class at this point, she's that good. Claudia is not too far behind. She's pretty good herself. I would say the difference between Claudia's grappling and Joanna is a much larger gap. than the gap between Joanna's striking superiority over Claudia's. I want to point out a couple things about Claudia's game. She uses the high boxing guard technique. It's a very aggressive technique. You have your hands up high and you're moving into the pockets. You can really take those shots on the glove and your arms, and the idea behind it is you use your feet, get away from really damaging shots. Otherwise, you close your glove to take on the straight. You have your gloves around your head if you have to eat an overhand, and you take them. You take them on the glove, you take them on the arm so that you can throw back power shots yourself. This is a very aggressive stance. Usually you'd have a little bit more conservative traditional boxing stance, or something like Joanna incorporates and really lead with that jab. Claudia doesn't do that. She doesn't play that game. It's not a conservative striking game at all for someone who probably won't be the better striker in this match. Look for Claudia to engage the striking first on a couple of these exchanges. Take the fight to Joanna, even though that is Joanna's game plan. In fact, that may be one of the things Claudia wants to do. Joanna, being the naturally bigger, rangier fighter, is going to really want to keep Claudia at bay using that jab, maybe throwing in some kicks. We've seen Joanna start throwing in some more kicks in her last few fights. She didn't really throw too many in her first fight with Claudia. I think Joanna, she said in an interview that she was just getting comfortable with the MMA game, and she felt like the way that she threw kicks in Muay Thai, she would get taken down all the time in camps, and she didn't want that to happen. So she was kind of tentative about throwing kicks until she learned how to throw kicks correctly off of certain combinations and not have that backfire on her. We saw against her fight against Letourneau actually caught a couple of her kicks, but Joanna did a pretty good job of staying balanced and not getting too frazzled, and kept her composure. I say frazzled. She kept her composure. That's a better way of putting it. She kept her composure and displayed that great defensive grappling that David was alluding to. With Claudia, she does mix in some great snap kicks, but she really likes to throw those punches in bunches, does a really good job of going body head, has a nice, healthy variety of different punches, really good with the hook, really good with the straight. She's got a nice jab herself. She trains with Andre Pederneiras, BJJ legend, now turned one of the best MMA coaches on the planet. Under him, she's just improved her entire game. Her striking's better, her wrestling's better. I think one of the issues that we're going to see in this fight, her gas tank. We see her gas out, not really gas out, but slow down a little bit in 3-round fights. If this becomes a 5-round affair, which you guys have both alluded to, will the champ start being able to put some distance on her in those later rounds? Joanna doesn't tire, and we've seen her go 5 rounds. Will Claudia be able to keep that up? Another issue that I have, especially with the way she likes to use that high boxing guard and then kind of blitz in, it's really susceptible to the counter uppercut. She may remember this strike because it was the one that landed her on her butt in the first round in that first fight with Joanna, which I'd like to talk about now, guys. That first fight, I watched it again recently. In my opinion, Claudia did win that fight. But I'm just going to point out a couple things that Claudia does other opponents that Joanna has faced, they haven't been able to do. First, I pointed out how Joanna has had a significant strike advantage against all of her opponents. Against Claudia outstruck her 49-47. Oh, no, 59-47, I'm sorry. She was also able to land 7 takedowns, and really starting in that third round was able to take her down almost at will. And in that first round, when Claudia was doing your more traditional singles, doubles, Joanna stuffed them. Was really good, keeping her base low, not really letting Claudia manipulate her base and get her over. As that fight went on, Claudia kind of changed tactics, started getting in close, getting in those underhooks, and instead of trying to power through, pick her up and slam her or try to get that double or single, she started going for body locks and hip tosses and drags. Mm-hmm. And when it comes to those techniques, yeah, there's a bit of skill. But when it comes to defense, you gotta be strong enough to hold that person off. Not too many girls as strong as Claudia, and as she likes to show off all the time, not too many girls have that core strength of Claudia. What does she have, a 12-pack?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, man. What's this? Passionate in the house. Oh, yeah. I train with Claudia. She's a beast. All right. Get out of here, Passionate.
Get out of here, Passionate.
Where'd you come from?
The passionate spray.
Kicked him off the show.
Oh, wow.
Well, those guys they've been on sabbatical.
Yeah.
They've been on sabbatical. Another thing I found really interesting about that first fight was just the end of it. When Joanna won, it was a split decision. Claudia thought for sure she had won that fight. And Joe Rogan goes in there. I think he was kind of surprised. I think he thought, well, when he was doing the commentary, he said, I see this fight 1-1 and Claudia won the third round. So I think in his mind, his unofficial scorebook, Claudia won too.
Right.
Went in there, asked Joanna if she thought she did enough to win the fight. She didn't say yes. She said, I thought it was 50-50 and we both did enough to win. A lot of respect for Claudia after that fight. She even said, I went into this fight thinking Claudia was number one. She's still number one in my book. And gave a shout out to Claudia as Claudia was walking out of the cage. Very respectful of her opponent. Man, how times have changed.
Love it.
So Dave.
Yep.
Who's winning this fight?
I'm going with a hashtag and still. Joanna keeps the belt.
And Matt?
You're dead to me, Dave. I'm going with the hashtag and new, because I think Claudia has a slightly stylistic advantage and has a mental advantage. So, and new.
Yeah, you bring up that mental advantage. I think if you haven't watched TUF, I think that's what Matt is alluding to. And the girls went back and forth a lot this season, but it did seem like Joanna was maybe going out of her way a little bit to really beat a bully and instigate a lot of things. And Claudia kind of played it cool. She didn't really engage in a lot of things. Now we hear there was an infamous fight off camera. Apparently Joanna threw a water bottle at Claudia. They fought. I guess the coaches weren't around, so no one really stopped them. Yeah, Cormier asked them straight up who won that fight. And Joanna was kind of deflecting, like, it doesn't matter, not a big deal. And Claudia was kind of like, well, one of us was crying. I think Matt may be onto something. Maybe, I'm not saying that she's won the mental game, but the way Joanna is responding to all of this kind of reminds me of Ronda Rousey, where out of nowhere, you see like this anger against someone that's really not engaging with you on any trash talk at all, and sort of like kind of almost inventing stuff to be angry at the other person, when before we've seen a very happy-go-lucky Joanna. She had like this weird swagger about her, gets gifts for people before fights. I mean, she's so goofy, and then she goes in there and destroys people. Something tells me she's not going to be getting Claudia a gift at the weigh-ins.
Well, also another thing is that she's the only one with a perfect record to defend.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
I guess that's true. Do you think that really weighs on her though?
For her, I don't think it does.
I don't think so either. I think that the real thing is Claudia, and how this has really become a grudge match, and it became personal. So for her, she can't lose this fight.
Yeah, for like Cormier, I think Cormier has a weight off his shoulders now that he's the underdog, even being the defender. But for a lot of people, and for Joanna, I don't think she has there's nothing she's not worried about that.
So Dave, you're going with the champ here. Why don't you give us Joanna's bro? All
right. Well, most of this has been said so far already in the podcast, but basically, I think this really comes down to Joanna's striking versus Claudia's ground game. If Joanna follows a similar path that she did in their previous matchup, and keeps the fight standing as long as possible, I mean, she needs to stuff Claudia's takedown attempts and really keep the fight on the feet. If she can keep this fight at range, that'll do wonders for her. I mean, she can keep it at range, that kickboxing range, and just take pot shots at Claudia basically for several rounds. I think she has a clear path that way. If it gets in close, who knows? It'll be razor thin, I think, either way. But if she can keep this fight at range, I think Claudia walks away with her belt. Not Claudia, sorry. Joanna walks away with the belt.
Uh-oh. You know the last time you slipped up like that, your guy lost.
Yeah.
Mr. Rory Wonderboy McDonald over here. Matt.
Dude, I'm drinking 40 Creek whiskey right now. Canadian whiskey. And, gotta pour one out for my dead homies, because now he's back in the line for the title chances. Love you, Rory.
Or number 1 in Bellator.
Yeah.
No.
And who's that welterweight champion in Bellator right now, Dave?
Andrei Korshov.
That's right, Andrei Korshov. That's his name. Yeah, he brought the hurt to Benson Henderson. That was a beatdown.
That was not even close.
All right, Matt. What is Claudia's bro?
Claudia's bro is to do her jiu-jitsu. Old school jiu-jitsu. Close the distance, clinch her, take her down, and use strikes to ground it out. Pass the guard, submit her. I actually don't see that happening. I actually see this going to decision, because both these girls are super tough. But I think Claudia especially needs to get that groundwork in and ground and pound and grind it out. Wear Claudia down early, because if this is going 5 rounds, and she's the bigger fighter, she's gonna need all the energy she can get towards the later rounds.
She'll also probably need to win those first several rounds too, and just in case her gas tank does go.
Yeah.
So it's just up.
But I mean, if she takes her down, does enough, and ground and pounds her out, grinds her, you usually win those rounds. She'll pull the old GSP. I mean, yeah, the old GSP, not the young GSP who actually used to fight.
And all of our Canadian fans just stopped listening.
Yeah, we just got him too because of Tyler. Thanks a lot, Matt.
And UFC Ottawa, like all 3. Hey, I'm repping your whiskey, guys. I'm drinking whiskey. Is that good enough? It's whiskey with a Y without an EY.
Yeah, I really like Joanna. She just has a very cool personality. I can't shake the fact that what I saw on the show and what I've seen in the interviews
Not the same.
for this upcoming Claudia fight is just a very different Joanna. I mean, she's always been a very confident girl, but this is just different. She used to have, like I said, a swagger, but almost a goofy swagger to her. Something very fun and upbeat, like I'm doing something I really enjoy and I happen to be one of the best at it, and isn't this great? As
She's
opposed to, I'm the best and I have to go around bullying people. I don't like that headspace, but maybe she goes out there and destroys Claudia. Maybe she's taking a page out of John Jones's book and it's like, hey, maybe being an asshole is just part of being a champ. I don't know. She'll have to prove that to me, though. I don't know if Joanna has really gotten that much better in her grappling that she could really stop Claudia's. I think Claudia has added a couple of new facets to her game, but her striking has gotten much better, too. I mean, she outstruck Joanna in that first fight, as significant of an advantage as Claudia's grappling advantage. And if she can take this fight to the ground and grind it out, it's gonna go differently this time. Another thing to look out for, those eye pokes. First, Joanna just kept sticking those fingers right in the cloud. It was weird, man. There was a lot of, and we didn't even mention it, but Claudia hit Joanna after the bell. Just a lot of weird things at a fight, but they kept like tapping gloves, like giving each other thumbs up. It was a really hotly contested fight, but there was also a lot of good sportsmanship, and so it's really weird that it's evolved into this grudge match. I'm really looking forward to it. I see Claudia having the edge here, though. I'm with Matt on this one. I think we're going to see or hear #and new at the end of the night. But I'm a huge Joanna fan. If she wins, more power to her. I also want to mention the co-main event of this fight, if for nothing else, because we were just talking about Bellator, but it is the debut of lightweight phenom Will Brooks versus Ross Pearson. Should be a fun fight. I think I see Will Brooks winning it, but I don't see it being as much of a runaway as I think some people are saying. Ross Pearson's a gutty fighter.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to call someone tough, it's Ross Pearson.
Another thing about Will Brooks that to me just boggles my mind, he's not even like a high-level collegiate wrestler or something like that. He picked that up.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like GSP, it's just like how does somebody who wasn't raised to do this, like out of the womb, like somebody who's not born in Iowa and has been wrestling since they were 2. Like, how do you get good at wrestling like that?
I don't know. You look at George St. Pierre, you look at Will Brooks, and I think a little bit of is genetics, bro. There's not a lot of human beings that look like those guys. Another shout out to the co-main events. These are pretty decent cards. It's just they're kind of in the shadow of UFC 200, which brings us to our last section of this podcast. We're just going to do a quick pick'em rundown of the undercard. We're going to start with Gomi versus Miller. I'm going to start with you, Matt. Who do you like here?
Gomi by decision.
David?
Miller, submission, round 2.
I could dig it. I think Gomi, he's coming off of back-to-back like knockout losses or something like that.
Yeah.
I can see Gomi's speed advantage playing a factor in him just outpointing Miller for a decision victory. I think I see that.
Fireball Kid.
I think I see it for the Fireball Kid by decision. Musasi versus Santos. Who you got, Dave?
I'm going Thiago Santos here over Musasi.
What about you, Matt?
Oh, you're dead to me again, Dave. Musasi by TKO round 2.
Musasi, Dave, you and I talk about him. Very skilled fighter.
He gets really complacent a lot. And you can tell the skill's there, but he just never throws enough output to actually decisively seal a victory, it seems like most of the time.
It's like a real lazy kind of thing. Like, that was why it was so bizarre watching him and who's our boy that's the only guy that's ever knocked out Musasi with a spinning back kick, flying knee, and punches?
Uriah Hall?
Uriah Hall, yeah. Like, Uriah Hall, I think honestly after TUF, like, after that finale or his semifinal thing, like, I don't think he's the same after that. He's very hesitant nowadays. And it was like watching 2 really hesitant guys just, like, hit each other, but they didn't want to actually finish the fight.
Oh, that's interesting. You'd think like the opposite. Like most guys, they get hit really hard, and then they get hesitant in the fight. You'd think that for Uriah Hall, he has something mentally different because he like almost killed a guy with a spinning heel kick.
Like, dude, it's crazy.
I didn't know my own power.
Almost killing a guy might actually make you think, if you're not a sociopath, like, man, maybe I shouldn't hit people so hard, and might, like, negatively affect you as a prize fighter.
It is true, because the way they cut it, it looked like he knocked him out. It was really bad, and then the guy went up and, like, bro hugged him. But what actually happened he was down for about 30 minutes. He didn't know what had happened, so he went over and hugged the guy. And they took him to the hospital.
Yeah, you saw a guy, like, get 5 years taken off his life, and you're like, do I get Fighter of the Night bonus, Dana? Thanks.
This next fight, in my opinion, a pick'em fight. But, man, after this fight, the Octagon's going to look like the elevator from The Shining. We got Joe Lauzon versus Diego Sanchez. Actually, I don't know if I made my pick for the last one, but I'm going Musasi as well.
Okay.
But Lauzon versus Sanchez. David, who do you got?
I'm going Sanchez in a very, very, very bloody decision.
Very bloody. Very bloody.
Yeah, I mean, I've got Lauzon by late sub, like late second round, middle of the third round, but it's going to be really violent.
I would avoid this fight for you betting fans out there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Don't bet on it.
Don't bet on this. There's other places to place your money. I guess I'll go Sanchez too. It's weird. We've talked about this before too. It's weird that he's sort of devolved into just this brawler. When he started out his career, I mean, he has a lot of different skills. His grappling's pretty good. His jiu-jitsu is very solid.
Yeah.
He just kind of fell in love with knocking people out. And his striking never caught up to his ferocity. I do like him. So I'm going to go the Nightmare, Diego Sanchez.
Back from when The Ultimate Fighter was really good.
This next fight,
yeah.
Full disclosure, I'm going Northcutt here.
They need to set him up against a can.
Who do you like here, Northcutt or Marin?
Yeah, so we got Northcutt's been like the rising star, I guess, in UFC. He's seemed like a good kid, likable, handsome dude, flashy fighter. Someone the UFC wants to be a star. And after his last loss, you just feel like the next matchup will be more in Northcutt's favor, at least stylistically wise. And I really think you have to go Northcutt against Marin. I'm gonna go with a submission round 2. But yeah, Northcutt.
Submission. All right. What about you, Matt?
I got Sage by TKO, late first or early second. They're setting him up against a can. Like, they're trying to put him against this guy who's like a jiu-jitsu specialist, but the guy is clearly not an athlete on the level of Sage. So he's gonna kill him. But it's okay, because he's still a good guy, and his jiu-jitsu is probably a shitload better than mine is. He's a purple belt under the same system that I'm studying, so he could probably crush me.
You are a white belt. It's kind of weird that you would throw yourself into that conversation, Matt. I mean, I do a little boxing myself. I don't say like, Eddie Alvarez would probably beat me in a fight.
Probably. It'd be close. It'd be close.
Why did you ask me stupid questions about jiu-jitsu then?
All right, moving on. TJ Dillashaw, Sun Sao. Why do they keep giving TJ Dillashaw guys that like come off of long layoffs?
Seriously. And can you believe this fight is on the undercard? And not even like the headliner of the undercard.
It's not even clear. It's like right in the middle.
That's nuts. This card is insane. Oh my gosh. Anyway, I'm going Dillashaw here with a late TKO.
I've actually got the exact same.
I'll go a Sun Sao, just to be
different.
Just to be contrarian. Who knows what he's going to look like? He beat Dillashaw, but that was a split decision. Very close fight.
Yeah,
very close fight.
And that was a different Dillashaw back when that happened too. He's really
yeah. Since then,
really
I forget
progressed.
what has he done since then. Did he become like champion or something like that? And then also like we've talked about it before, but not everyone's Dominic Cruz. Not everyone can come off from a massive injury and take 2 years off and then come back and still be the same
exactly.
or better.
He hasn't fought in 2 years. It's nuts.
Ring rust is definitely real.
No, ring rust is not real because the ring has plastic things on the outside of it, and rust happens from oxidation of metals. So if you have plastic around the outside, it doesn't happen, right?
All right. We got Johnny Hendricks versus Kelvin Gastelum. Kind of an important fight. These guys are on a bit of a losing streak. In many ways, Kelvin is kind of like he's like the younger Hendricks. Mm-hmm. He's got that wrestler boxing hybrid style,
and they're both fat.
He's still young. Yeah, they both had trouble, making weight before. When he fought on that TUF that we watched, he was actually competing at middleweight. So it's a very interesting fight, and you get the feeling if Hendricks loses this fight, I mean, is that his career? Is that it?
Quite possibly.
Matt, who do you have winning this one?
I actually have Hendricks by decision.
I actually agree with you, Matt. I think Hendricks takes it by decision, but I think this will be a very, very close fight. Well, like Viet said, they're very similar fighters. But yeah, I do think Hendricks takes it by decision.
It's not going to be pretty.
No.
I love Johnny Hendricks, one of my favorite fighters in the UFC. Yeah. I just went to sleep and dreamt of that punch guy.
He does sound like a really nice guy.
He does sound like an absolutely nice guy. I'm going to go with Gastelum here, though. I see these two on different trajectories. I see Johnny Hendricks maybe be on his way out. Hasn't really looked so great in his last few fights. And just so much turmoil in his life. In his steakhouse, going under, switching camps, switching dietitians, missing weight, going on that crazy deer meat diet, that not working, having all those stomach issues. And at this point, if he walked away now, he's got money and he was a champion. He had a belt. I get the feeling that you got Gastelum, his last few fights. Yeah, he's been on a losing streak too, just like Johnny. But the difference is Kelvin's fight have been a bit closer, and I get the feeling that for Gastelum, it's lack of preparation and youthfulness. Things that he just hasn't been accustomed to in the octagon that will come with more experience. But the other stuff is there, and he's continually improving. It just seems like the perfect storm for him right now. Very motivated to get back to getting a W, and to be able to do so over a name like Johnny Hendricks would do wonders for him. I just see this one for Gastelum. In the last fight, we got Kat Zingano versus our girl, Juliana Pena. David, who do you got here?
Well, clearly I'm going with our girl, with the Venezuelan vixen.
With Bay.
Yeah.
Bay Pena.
My favorite.
What about you, Matt?
Man, I just think Zingano pops out. She's like a blue moon. Pops out every 2 years and just beats somebody and then disappears. So I got Zingano by decision.
I'm going to go with Bay Pena. I just really like that girl. She's awesome. Plus, we saw her live. She kicked ass. That concludes our pick'ems for the undercard. And now for Rattling the Cage.
And
Matt, take it away.
We go. During the first UFC Women's 125-pound bout, Reebok kept giving us wardrobe malfunctions. At least it's good for something. Those UFC 200 promos with Brock punching the screen don't scare me. I could have been a contender, but I took an arrow to the diverticulitis. Donald Cerrone thinks the UFC doesn't care about him or pay him enough, but he's always willing to fight. Why buy the cow when you can get the cowboy for free? Chad Mendez is in trouble with USADA. Suspicions first arose when he suddenly was big enough to ride the big kid rides at Disneyland. GSP feels ready to return to fighting. After the last few combined hours of him laying on top of opponents, I think fans are also excited to see him do something different. Miesha Tate had a laugh at Ronda Rousey's expense on Conan O'Brien, mentioning that Ronda will have taken over a year to get back on the horse. That's about as long as it took Miesha to come up with that burn. Stick to fighting, Cupcake. Chill out, John Jones. Big John McCarthy retired as a cop a long time ago. You don't have to worry about him refereeing your fight. I think the cocaine is making you paranoid. Roy Nelson called Brock Lesnar the heavyweight Conor McGregor. Since he's trying to get a money fight with Brock, that makes him the heavyweight Nate Diaz, except instead of skinny fat, he's just fat. Football superstar Herschel Walker, age 54, will have his third professional fight, eventually, with Bellator. The fact that he can fight without pulling out due to injury is astonishing, considering he trains with AKA. The lack of security for the 2016 Summer Olympics in Rio is actually a ploy to get people to learn Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu as self-defense. Those acai bowls aren't going to pay for themselves, guys. And I'm spent.
Oh, nice.
All right. Thanks, Matt Alexander, for that Rattling the Cage. Guys, thank you so much for helping me do this episode. So much to go through, and this is just part one, guys. As I mentioned before, we will be releasing a part 2 to finish up our coverage of UFC 200, where we'll break down the main card. Man, there's some crazy awesome fights on that one. You guys will want to tune in for that. Also, as I mentioned earlier, UFC fighter Ben Nguyen will stop by and chat with us. You guys do not want to miss this one. Matt, do you have anything to say to our listeners out there?
Keep it 100, don't get a liberal arts degree, and learn how to fight, guys.
Shouldn't you have said keep it 200?
Keep it 200. Oh,
Man, missed opportunity, bro.
Damn it. God, this is why I can't have nice things.
Also, liberal arts degrees are fine, you know?
As long as you get a law degree after that, am I right or am I right?
Oh, yeah.
Dave, you got anything for our listeners?
No, guys, just enjoy 3 nights of excellent fights this weekend. And follow us on Twitter and stuff if you want to see some live tweeting and some excellent... If you like Rattle in the Cage, follow Matt during the fights.
Yeah, that's right. Matt, why don't you give me your handle?
At BroBazGuy, B-A-Z. It'll be funny. I'll probably be making fun of John Jones the entire time, because he deserves it. And other cool stuff. Also, I might send you a couple pictures of a guy with 3 teeth.
He means to say dick pics, so do not, if he sends you a DM, do not. He thinks DM stands for dick messages.
Dick messages.
Do not open them. We also like to hear from you guys, so give us your thoughts on the fights. Who do you think's gonna win in the Fight Night 90 main event, the TUF 23 main event, and all of those fights we covered on the UFC 200 undercard? Tell us in the comments below or hit us up on Twitter at @BroisBros. You can also hit me up on Twitter. Always love to hear from you guys at FaceTheFacts22. To keep up to date on our latest blogs and articles, check out our website, broisbros.com. And to keep the latest updates on our podcast, subscribe. Also for our Bros on the Go, we are also on iTunes. You can look us up, Brois Bros. Guys, thank you so much for joining me on the show. That was David and Matt. I'm Viet, telling you to enjoy the fights. And until next time, we are the Brois Bros, you knows.
UFC 200 main card, and I can't do this one right now because my voice is dying.
It's insane. In the membrane.